I could feel very high.
It's a new day on the Enterprise and we've got a problem. More accurately, it would appear we've caused a problem as we've offended our guests, but their language being particularly complicated means we're struggling to understand why. They return to their ship and withdraw their docking umbilical, while something that looks vaguely like mobile cobweb nips in through the still closing external airlock door. To the bridge we go, where Hoshi's hearing odd noises from the phones. We put it down to a malfunction despite running checks, and she moves on to being frustrated by the language barrier with our recently departed guests. T'Pol pointing out it's her job to get it right doesn't help improve things. She's not the only one in a shite mood either. Archer's also pissed at how things went, but at least he's got Tucker to distract him with a chance to watch some soggy sports ball. The space cobweb is making its way through our ship's conduits as everybody else gets on with their evening, or not, as one of our engineering staff will have to miss the planned movie night in the mess hall due to a malfunction in a cargo bay. He didn't miss anything as the movie's cancelled when the screen instead shows internal cameras, yet another of the many small cock-ups we've been experiencing. Looks like our engineer has found the source of the problems, more specifically that our space cobweb has set up a rather messy home. It takes issue with being disturbed just as the engineer was trying to call it in, which causes his buddy to come looking for him. She at least manages to make a call to Archer and warn him before the line goes dead, so he and Tucker interrupt watching their game to come and take a look themselves, with Reed and another guard. We find the two engineers ensnared, and the space cobweb doesn't seem to care for light based on it contracting around their bodies when we shine a torch. The first engineer sees us and warns Archer to leave, though not quick enough for him to do so. The space cobweb tentacles manage to grab Archer, Tucker, and the unnamed guard, with Reed only just scarpering in time to slam the door and cut off the end of the tentacle that had his name on it. Our space cobweb problem is growing, literally. We're trying to figure out how it got here, and the last change of note was a visit from the people we pissed off. T'Pol thinks that wasn't enough for them to attack us, and questions whether this is an attack at all, but they're still the first people we should ask, so after them we go. That doesn't mean we can't try and figure this out ourselves, and Phlox is having a poke at the tentacle Reed severed. Getting sliced up hasn't done anything to prevent it from being quite so lively. This is just the first surprise, as the next is that it may be intelligent. Hoshi wants to try and have a go at communicating, but is shot down by T'Pol as the situation needs dealing with ASAP. Phlox confirms the sensitivity to light we noted before, so we're going to see if we can flash the bugger into submission. The gummed-up crew are chatting, the ones who are conscious anyway, when Reed and company enter with gizmos. The gizmos poop purple at the space cobweb and start affecting it. Unfortunately, they're also affecting the crew, which is why they start screaming. Phlox tells Reed to knock it off and they scarper from the cargo bay. The screaming is because the space cobweb and the crew aren't entirely distinct entities anymore and have started to share a nervous system. In short, sticking one to the space cobweb is also sticking one to them. Under the circumstances, Hoshi's request to try and have a chat with the space cobweb may be the best choice after all. Sooner rather than later might be a good idea too. Phlox thinks allowing the process to continue will result in one single entity comprised of the space cobweb and our 4 crew members, which is going to cause significant headaches at Starfleet Command when they try to figure out what rank it holds. And that's without it adding any more crew to the Gestalt, which is a distinct possibility if Reed's concern about it continuing to grow proves accurate. He's had an idea about using an experimental Starfleet prototype, a newfangled gizmo called a force field. He thinks this might keep it locked in if he can get it working, but that'll require significant tinkering, so off he goes. Travis has found our insulted guests and we're giving chase. We're not in range of a phone call yet, but it's just a matter of time. Elsewhere on the bridge, Hoshi's still trying to learn space cobweb. It's unlike anything our systems were designed to pass, more mathematics than linguistics, so T'Pol joins the effort. Down in the cargo bay, Tucker's reading Archer's mind. He now understands a nuance of soggy sports ball despite being unfamiliar with the game before today, and the realization they're starting to share thoughts has him panicked. Archer's confidence in our eventual success helps calm him down, probably because he doesn't know how little progress we're making. Reed wants to change that, and he's visiting sickbay to perform a few tests on the space cobweb tentacle. These tests involve a little bit of the old electrocution to calibrate his new force field, so Phlox tells him to bollocks. The tentacle is intelligent life, so Phlox isn't just going to let him torture it. As there's currently no captain to overrule the Doctor in matters of medicine, Reed submits to Phlox being in charge of what he's allowed to do. To the mess hall we go, where our translation efforts are still struggling, and Hoshi's getting pissed off at what she sees as T'Pol's judgment. T'Pol says she's harsh because she knows Hoshi can achieve more, which feels like some middle management bullshit excuse for being an abusive dick to me, but let's ignore that for now. It works, and the two continue. With everybody else doing their own thing, Travis is basically on his own when we catch up with our disgruntled former guests. The good news is they've studied our language and know how to speak it now. The better news is they also know exactly what we're talking about when Travis describes the space cobweb. It's something they saw on a planet, though he's clear he takes no responsibility for what's happened. They'll even tell us where that planet is, just as soon as we apologize for our disgusting behavior. Eating, we learn, is as taboo as sex for them, so a tour of the mess hall was basically a gastronomical gangbang. Travis apologizes for our public display of slutty snacking, and we receive the directions. He'd best put his boot down. Archer and Tucker are the last two conscious, and that's a losing battle. Just as well we're nearly ready to give our plan a go, as Hoshi and T'Pol are making progress on the translator, and Reed's got the force field working. Sometimes, anyway. To the cargo bay we go, where the force field prevents a curious tentacle from having a poke. In come T'Pol and Hoshi with Phlox for a chat, and after a few attempts, get a response. Some more fiddling to ask what the space cobweb wants results in coordinates, ones Hoshi assumes refer to a location on the planet we were told about. Once we tell the space cobweb we're on our way there right now, Phlox detects an improvement in Archer and the others, and with a slurp of withdrawing tentacles, they're released. We've arrived at a planet and are off to visit the surface in a shuttle. We're greeted by a whole lot of additional space cobweb, into which our own small portion goes. So too does the tentacle Phlox has brought, so we'll leave the crew to wonder just how much of the planet this single mind occupies, as we get ready to take another step on the long road. Sid Meier's Alpha Centauri is a 4X strategy game for the PC released back in 1999. For those unaware, the game is somewhat of a spiritual successor to the Civilization series and explores what might happen if humanity buggered off to the titular star system of Alpha Centauri, which was one of the win conditions for a number of Civilization games. I mention it here because one of the plot elements in Alpha Centauri was the existence of a planet-spanning fungal entity that you eventually discover is intelligent, and one of the ways to complete the game is by having your faction of humans enter into symbiosis with it to become part of the shared mind. Now, I'm not suggesting there's a definite connection here, just as I didn't with the episode Rogue Planet earlier in the season and its similarities to the film Pitch Black. What I would say is that Alpha Centauri was an award-winning critical success, and very popular with exactly the sort of nerd who'd be into Star Trek some 3 years before this episode was released. Make of that what you will. In the interest of balance, this isn't exactly the first time Trek has dealt with such a theme. The Great Link of the Founders was a similar planet-spanning consciousness, and that was introduced back in 1994. Maybe we should be raising our eyebrows at Sid Meier instead. Or Brian Reynolds, actually, but that's a whole other thing. Regardless of who was cribbing from who, if anybody was cribbing in the first place, my point is that today's story isn't particularly novel. That's not a death knell in and of itself, though. The individual parts may not be what you'd call new or inventive, and a fair portion of the final scene in the cargo bay feels padded out, but the story on the whole is put together in a sufficiently interesting way. It's helped a little by giving some more time to the less regularly used members of the cast. Archer and Tucker are perhaps the most front and centre characters in the show, or at least feel like it, so a story that effectively sidelines them gives the rest of the cast a chance to save the day. Interestingly, this also comes with a little conflict. I don't know whether showing friction when Archer is removed was intentional, but we have a pair of disagreements while he's incapacitated. Ding-dong number 1 is between Phlox and Reed over the treatment of the space cobweb tentacle. It's resolved swiftly enough when Phlox points out Reed can't pull rank, and he accepts this, but it still does a fair job of displaying the differences between the two. Reed has a greater focus on defense and protection, possibly also influenced by the fact he was personally attacked, whereas Phlox exhibits more of the inquisitive attitude we'll come to see in Starfleet of the future. It's not the first time Phlox has stepped in to act as the cheerleader for their stated mission goals, which is interesting when he only ended up joining by chance. Ding-dong number 2 is perhaps of greater importance as it's a longer-running thread. Hoshi's lack of self-confidence, that sense of imposter syndrome, has been ticking along in the background for a while. Such emotional responses getting in the way of progress is something for which T'Pol has little time, and those two facts do not play well together. The pair have sparked against each other a few times, but always eventually come to an agreement. That it keeps happening is worthy of note, though, as I'd argue this shows a failure on T'Pol's part more than Hoshi's. T'Pol is the senior officer, and it's her job to get the machine running smoothly. Heaping pressure on Hoshi with judgments runs contrary to this goal, even if T'Pol genuinely does feel it's her job. I stand by my comment in the summary that this is a tactic used by incompetent middle management, an attempt to normalize abuse in an effort to cover your own lack of people skills. Being an arsehole to someone for a reason is still being an arsehole to someone. Let's end this episode with a little look at the guests we offended right at the start. We eventually learn the reason is because we ate in front of them, and we viewers have a good chuckle at how silly an idea this is. Except, is it really? Think about it. Think about all the biological functions we humans perform that are considered taboo or unsuitable for public display. Reproduction, urination, defecation, vomiting, cleaning. We ask to be excused when sneezing. Hell, we don't even like to cry around others. All perfectly normal, perfectly natural biological activities. In contrast, eating and drinking are actually outliers in being biological necessities that do not generally come with psychological baggage, the exceptions to the rules we created as our civilization advanced. Once you take a moment to step back and consider the idea in relation to its peers, you could argue that it's really us who are the weird ones for being so inconsistent with our adopted inhibitions. End of episode.
Risa?
Yes, Riser.
Why do you want to go to Risa? Sun, Sea, and Jamaharan?
I mean, yeah, but mainly 'cause it's not what we're meant to be doing. We've been on rails too long and just accepting it. I want to throw a spanner in the works and see what happens.
Are you sure? We did put in quite a lot of effort to plan this mutiny.
Bugger the mutiny, that's the route we were assigned. I want us to start forging our own path again like we used to.
You mean like when I got turned into a cartoon with a skull for a face, and you were banged up for biting a guy's dangler? To be honest with you, I don't exactly look back on them with fondness.
Maybe not, but they were us. This whole setup, the mutiny idea, it feels like something we'd be expected to do rather than something we'd want to.
What's the difference?
Well, autonomy, I guess.
Okay, fine. We'll go to Risa. How are we getting there?
We could nick a shuttle, take a joyride over to it.
Shuttles don't have warp capability. It would take years.
Oh, bugger. All right, clever clogs, how would you do it?
The only ship that could get us there is the Enterprise.
There's only one thing for it, then. We'll have to organise a mutiny and take control of the... Oh, for fuck's sake, woof.